Welcome to the On the Pen podcast with your host, Dave Knapp.
Welcome to the On the Pen, the weekly dose podcast for this Wednesday, a day late, October 22nd, 2025. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, Zepbound, Compound, and we are back from Health 2025 in the beautiful state of Nevada, Las Vegas to be specific. It was my first trip to Las Vegas, and what a trip it was. Las Vegas is wild. I'll say that right off the bat. A wild, highly overstimulating place for this anxiety-prone, ADD-ridden fool. It was wild. But the conference was amazing. We learned a lot. We met a lot of people. And on today's podcast, I simply want to introduce you to the folks that we chatted with. Some of these folks are folks who have been on the podcast before. We met one of our headline sponsors here. So it was great to meet folks in the flesh and sort of get a feel for where the future of healthcare is, and especially as it relates to the telemedicine space. And so I wanted to make sure that you got the chance to hear from many of the key players in the telehealth space right now. And so I'm going to bring you some interviews here. Before I get started, I want to say a special shout out to my buddy Ike from StallyBrand.com, who joined me on the trip. Ike, if you remember from a few weeks ago, we interviewed Ike and talked to him about his career as a professional football player. He's on his journey back to the NFL, and we told his story about the discovery of personalized medicine, the importance of self-advocacy, of course, a couple of Achilles tears related to some bad prescribing, which it's a crazy story. So if you missed that episode with Ike, I highly recommend you go back and check that out from just a couple of weeks ago. And then we also ran into our friend Madison Muller from over at Bloomberg, health reporter from over at Bloomberg. It's always a joy to run into Madison. She's become a true friend in the industry, and it's been great to be able to run into her at these things and catch up. And then, of course, you're going to see from many other people that we got videos with. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play these videos, and then we're just going to chat for a minute about the topic that we discussed about. I hope you'll bear with me. The audio, I tried to clean it up as best I can. We're at a trade show. There's like a dull roar in the background. So I tried to remove that as best I can so that you can hear those. So if you're listening on the podcast, just listen this week with a little bit of grace because we'll try to find a way in the future to clean this up. I was actually recording with my Meta glasses. I don't know if you guys have seen these, but they're just, a normal pair of glasses with essentially lenses in them and microphones. And so it's kind of a first person view. So I thought it would be kind of cool because it kind of give you that first person view of what I'm seeing at the show. But let's hear from our first guest today from the health conference. This is Dr. Melinda Barnes. She's the chief medical officer over at Roe. Of course, our friends over at Roe who've been working with us for years here on the podcast. Really love our friends over at Roe. Let's hear a little bit from Dr. Melinda Barnes.
Dr. Melinda Barnes, it's so good to see you here. You're here on behalf of Roe and the team there. I am curious there's so much going on here, and there's so many companies in the telehealth space these days. Roe's kind of like an OG in the space. What was different about Roe when Roe started, and what remains different today in this space?
Yeah, I mean, Roe it was very revolutionary when it started, right? About almost 8 years ago, the founders got together and said, how do we democratize access to high quality care? And I think if you look at our beginnings, we started with authentic storytelling, right? We had Z and his dad talking about his struggles with erectile dysfunction, and the fact that he had a loving, educated, informed father who's a physician who helped us navigate that. And Z's mission has been to give his father and dad loving, goal-oriented healthcare to everyone. And that remains the same. I think what we've seen is we focus 100% on patient centricity. You put the patient in the center, you can't go wrong. You have to be obsessed with what they want, what do they need, and then you use that, you leverage technology, and that is how you build access. And so we continue to invest in technology, building out access, and one of the other ways that access is super helpful for patients is empowering them to say, like, I can ask about this kind of care for myself as well. And so we've seen our evolution start with Z and his dad talking about stigmatization related to ED and that authentic storytelling. And where we are today is authentic storytelling with Serena Williams and her story about struggling with overweight. And, you know, she just has such a, like, she's an extraordinary person with a very, like, ordinary story, which is I was doing the peak of exercise, playing professional tennis. I was doing every type of diet, you know, getting rid of carbs, and what do I need to do? And ultimately, what she realized is that her body was missing something. And she came to Roe to get that combination of high quality, safe care with a provider, with medication. And by sharing her story, she has empowered people and given them permission to share their story and to ask for help. And she has, in, you know, one campaign, raised awareness, has helped educate people about obesity, GLP-1, this okay to ask for medication, and also has destigmatized talking about overweight or needing help or needing medication. And that's been amazing. It is like this next evolution of everything we've been building for patients, and having her be that authentic patient who's also a spokesperson and giving people permission to ask for help.
Awesome. I love Roe. Love what you're doing there. Really appreciate all the innovation that Roe has done for the space and will continue to do. And I just love what you're all doing, and so happy to have been a little part of that.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Very nice to see you too.
So Dr. Melinda Barnes from Roe, Chief Medical Officer to be specific. Just a delight to be able to spend some time and chat with her. She was speaking on a panel there at Health this year. A couple things that she highlighted there. You know, what really jumped out to me about what she had to say about the history of Roe and the innovation in the space. When I think about these massive telehealth companies, right, whether we're talking Weight Watchers or Roe or Noom or Hims and Hers, we're talking about companies that have no choice but to innovate and scale. When we talk about the problem of obesity, we're talking about a problem of over 100 million people in the US alone. And so I think about some of these health influencers online, some of these doctors online who seem to spend a lot of time castigating the larger players in the industry as pill mills, right? Which is very annoying to me, because when you think about the problem of obesity, you have to have large players in this space willing to scale, because we simply do not have enough brick and mortar locations to scale out wraparound obesity care. And so there's a lot of conversations at these health conferences about how do we provide better all-encompassing care. And without the innovation, leveraging technology, AI tools, et cetera, we're never going to be able to meet the problem in a meaningful way so that all patients living with obesity get the care and treatment that they deserve. That's why we talk both about branded medications on this channel and compounded medications, because again, we need both. None of these industries, the compounding industry cannot solve the problem alone. The pharmaceutical industry cannot solve the problem alone. Obesity doctors, dietitians, they cannot solve the problem alone, right? Obesity is a multifactorial disease. And so when I think about who to talk to and who to partner with in this industry, I have to think about the problem as a whole and how diverse the community is of people living with obesity. And what I appreciate about Roe and companies like Roe is the innovation that they have put forward. They put so much work, money, time, and effort, and blood, sweat, and tears, frankly, because these people are passionate about what they do, into helping meet the needs of patients living with obesity. So I really appreciate Dr. Melinda Barnes and her willingness to sit down with us and discuss this a little bit. And I hope you enjoyed what she had to say. A little break for our sponsors at Shapa. Now, Shapa, you can go to myshapa.com, home.myshapa.com/OTP to learn more. But I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. So one of the cool things about the Shapa scale, it's a numberless scale. We've talked about it many times on this channel, but what I loved about my Shapa scale is it keeps me engaged with my health. And it has a feature within the app that I leveraged while I was gone, where I can put it on vacation mode, so that even though I'm getting out of the routine of stepping on the scale, I'm not going to travel with the scale. It allows me to put it on vacation mode and sort of keep my progress paused, right? So when I came back on, the first thing I did last night, who likes to weigh themselves at night? Not me. I actually get on the scale first thing in the morning, every morning. But I wanted to see how I did when I got back, and I maintained that green zone. So it means that over the course of being gone, I maintained down to 265 pounds, which is the lowest that I've been in 10 years. That was actually 2 pounds down from when I left, but still showing maintenance over the next couple of days as I get some more measurements in there. Maybe we'll see that go down back into the blue zone, the weight loss zone. Again, if you're somebody who struggled or know people who struggle with stepping on the scale, and even though on an intellectual level we may know that the number that we see fluctuating every day is not really going up, let's say 5 pounds in a day or down 5 pounds in a day. Shapa zooms out, gives us 10 days of data to show us the patterns of what our health is doing. And so love our friends at Shapa. Use the code OTP30, save 30% on the Shapa scale. Now let's hear from our next interview here. So this is Jeff Cook from Noom. Jeff has been on the podcast multiple times. One of the things that I want to preface this with is I just like Jeff. I think Jeff is a really unique individual. So he's the CEO of a major company, right? Jeff probably doesn't have to do a lot, but almost every session that I was in, and there are many, many sessions, I saw Jeff learning. Jeff's going back to school actually to get, I believe, his doctorate in nutrition science. This is a guy who is a learner, and I have so much respect for people who get to the level that Jeff is in their career and they refuse to stop learning. So just on a personal level, I just want to say I really like Jeff. He's just a really good guy. So let's hear from Jeff a little bit about what he had to say about what he's doing and some of the science behind some of the stuff they're doing at Noom.
MS in nutrition science, which is exciting, obviously, on the side. And one of the things that interests me that I'm working on right now is actually a 15-page paper on a research review connecting mindfulness, food noise, and GLP-1, right? And what's interesting about mindfulness is it quiets a part of the brain called the default mode network. And that's the mind-wandering network that's basically active in all the times you're not doing something else. And the way mindfulness works is you're using your prefrontal cortex to basically notice the mind wandering and train it to suppress. And meditators have a much quieter DMN even when they're not meditating. The GLP-1 also quiets the default mode network of food noise, right? And so food noise has been complained. Many people will say, 80% of the time, or at least a large portion of the time, that they're thinking about food, which makes it more likely that they're going to eat. So the GLP-1 takes a molecular approach to quieting the DMN, which I find very interesting. And what's probably likely about how the GLP-1's expressing that is it's changing the reward pathways in the brain, right? The dopamine pathways. And so basically, there's been a milkshake study that was super interesting. Can't remember who did it, but basically showed that in people who, I think it was with diabetes, might have been the population, and had basically trained the participant to expect the milkshake to come when a light went on, right? And was able to, and did this in both people who were a placebo group who were probably lean, and those who were in the experimental arm. And they basically found that the brain lit up more for the liking, right, of the milkshake itself in people and people that were actually, so it was actually on a GLP-1 versus a block GLP-1. That was its study. So it was basically you were on Zenatide or you were on a Zenatide block. It was actually Zenatide. Okay. It was an early GLP-1. And they basically found that the GLP-1 made you more likely to like the food in the moment and less likely to want it, right? So So what was interesting about that study is the anticipatory wanting of the food, of the milkshake in this case, was when you're on a GLP-1, you want it less. So like when you see the food cue, you actually want it less when you're on GLP-1, but when you actually experience the food, you like it more, which is like a remarkable result, right? Like you want it less and you like it more. Maybe that's why some of these companies are worth many hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap, because that's a good trick. But yeah, so like that's one of the things that I'm studying in this new program. I'm
Very
super
cool.
excited about.
I love to hear it. Thank you for sharing a little bit with us, Jeff, today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
So we're here with
So Cook from Noom, now referencing what he called the milkshake study, and I'm not gonna lie, as he sat there, all I could think was that song, "My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard." Is anybody else ADD like that? I could not get that song out of my head. Still in my head right now, and now it's in yours. So you're welcome for that. So Jeff talks about the milkshake study and how one arm was using exenatide. That's Exendin 4. That's actually the Byetta, right? That was the Gila monster venom one. Fun fact. One of the cool things that I learned while I was in Vegas is that the Las Vegas hockey team is actually their mascot is a Gila monster. So that's a pretty cool GLP-1 connection if I've ever seen one. But I digress. So they basically took a wing of the arm that got exenatide, and then the other one where they've actually learned to, with a different variation of exenatide, block GLP-1. So this is not tirzepatide, but this is exenatide, so a straight GLP-1. And it's just fascinating to see that these folks, while their hunger was driven down, once they consumed actually the milkshake, they still enjoyed it the same. Now, it's interesting because we have seen studies with tirzepatide that are sort of similar, watching the brain light up in response to highly palatable foods, right? And with tirzepatide, and there was, I believe, an exenatide arm of that study. With the tirzepatide, you saw those areas of the brain actually not light up, right? So it's very interesting to see the differences between some of these drugs, again, straight GLP-1s. And we tend to just call these all GLP-1s and act like they all act the same. But if you know anything about tirzepatide, you know that it's primarily a GIP receptor agonist with a little bit of GLP-1. So very strong on the GLP side, GIP side, not so strong on the GLP-1 side. So does GLP-1 potentially offer some ability to still enjoy the foods that you once did, while tirzepatide maybe has more of a propensity to make you not desire these foods? Be very interesting to see. And how does that all track with some of the alcohol studies and all of that? Just very interesting. And it just goes to show you how early on we are in sort of the research of all of this stuff. But love that Jeff is a learner. As I kind of preface this whole thing, I want to take a moment before we jump into this next interview with Michael Botta, who's actually the CEO of Sesame Health. If you're familiar with them, that's where Dr. Marty Makary, the chief medical officer, came from, who now is the head of, what is he the head of? I can't remember whether he's the head of the FDA or I can't remember. He's high up in health in the government. I can't remember. Somebody will tell me in the comments. My brain isn't functioning at 100% today. I'm pretty exhausted from this trip. But I do want to take a moment. If you're somebody who is struggling to get branded medication because you had an insurance denial, know that 90% of insurance denials are never even fought. And the insurance companies are banking on you not fighting. In step Claimable, our sponsor on the podcast here. Claimable is going to give you an opportunity to build a medical, a legal case, and fight back against the insurance companies, and then send that case off to all the interested parties with, according to their CEO, about a 50% success rate in getting people back on GLP-1s once their insurance is denied. So if you've been denied care through your insurance, put denial in the comments, and then go to getclaimable.com/OTP and use code OTP10 and save 10% and fight back with a 50% chance of getting back on your GLP-1. A great track record. Love our friends over at Claimable. And if you see them around the social medias, thank them for sponsoring the On the Pen podcast. That would do my heart good. Thank you to Claimable for sponsoring the podcast. But let's hear from Michael Botta, CEO of Sesame Health. Let's hear what he had to say about his time at the health conference.
Michael Botta of Sesame Health. Michael, hanging out at the health conference today. It's first day, so we haven't seen a whole lot yet, but I'm curious to hear from you what you're most excited about in terms of what's going on in the industry right now?
Sure. For me, it's always about learning because there are so many entities here. Comparing notes on what's been happening both on the science front in terms of what's coming down the line over the coming months and years, because it seems like there's a lot happening as we get to the end of 25, beginning of 26, whether it's the launches of oral Wegovy, whether it's the launches of orforglipron, whether it's looking even further out to tirzepatide and what's coming down the line from Amgen and others. But staying abreast of it for us, for our patients, is really the highlight of coming here.
What is the thing that you're most excited to what's your most excited takeaway from this?
Well, for me, it's trying to promote what we are doing, which is a big part of what I'm doing. Talking about Sesame's relationship with Costco, the fact that if you're a Costco member, you get a discount on care, you can get the lowest price on Novo's products, whether mail order or at Costco pharmacy, if you come through Sesame's front door. Those are all things we're always excited to talk about, but I get to meet the other folks in the space here, and fundamentally I get reminded that this is a really important space for people's lives. People lose weight, they get healthier, they get care for a wider variety of conditions, even than just weight loss, than just type 2 diabetes, and just cardiometabolic stuff. And their lives are genuinely improved as a result. So hearing those stories, meeting the people who are at the front lines of doing that, that's the most exciting thing about being here.
Just on a personal note, Michael, I cover On the Pen, we talk about all the new drugs that are coming out. Do you have one particularly that you're the most excited about?
Boy, okay, so you are talking to, and the folks who are reading and listening to On the Pen are early adopters. They've been willing to, take an injection every week, in some cases every day, depending on when they started. The advent of oral medications, I think, are going to be really interesting. And of course, we've had some things previously with Rybelsus, the type 2 diabetes space, but when you talk about tolerability there, it's pretty hard to manage. The tolerability profiles for both oral Wegovy and orforglipron look a lot better. And for folks who are needle shy or for whom an injectable just doesn't fit their life, the ability to get similar efficacy out of orals is super compelling and really exciting.
Awesome. Great to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Dave, thanks for having me.
So that is Michael Botta from Sesame Health, talking about the future and current state of obesity medicine. Excited about oral medications coming down the pike. Interesting. Did you guys catch my interview last week with Max Bayer from Endpoints? He's the one who asked Trump the question that led Trump to say, we're going to have $150 fat shot. So in that press gaggle was our friend Max Bayer, another reporter that we've gotten to know really well. We did an interview with him last week. And if you missed that, I hope you'll go back and check it out because it was a fantastic interview. He took a totally different track. So Michael here is saying he's excited for orals. He thinks it's going to be a game changer for the space. I tend to agree with Michael. I think there are a lot of people out there clamoring for the oral formulations. And there's a lot of the telehealth companies out there that are now offering oral versions. And we've talked about the oral bioavailability being a huge question mark over this. When you talk about compounders, we're going to actually provide some education from some of the pharmacists that formulate these oral formulations to talk about what are you doing to make sure that there's some level of oral bioavailability in the compounded versions. But when we talk about the future of obesity medicine, I think there are a lot of people out there, and this is what I've learned at On the Pen, is that there are just a tremendous amount of people out there who actually are averse to the needles. They're so scared of taking the needles that is a barrier for them to getting treatment. And so that's a big thing for me is, again, thinking about from a 180-degree perspective, what everybody in our community needs. And at the end of the day, what we are proponents of are access to the kind of care that meets patients where they are, right? And there are so many people with so many different varying needs and requirements. I am curious to hear from these pharmacies, as I know you are, on what are you doing to protect these peptides to make sure that there's any bioavailability at all. So we're going to have that conversation. But of course, orforglipron coming at the first part of next year. But it sounds like we may have oral Wegovy by the end of this calendar year. So that may be enticing. If you're interested in the oral medications, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to know how many of you are out there that are interested in the orals. I know that a lot of you have been around forever. Some of you are in maintenance and you're like, there's no way that I need the needle. But for those who are out there who haven't explored this yet because they're afraid of needles, I think the orals do present an opportunity, but there are sort of competing, mindsets on how effective or how popular these orals will be. I'm curious to hear from all of you. Let's listen to our next interview here. We've got
All right, we got
another
Cena
one.
from
This is sorry, I hit play too quick. Trigger fingers, a little trigger happy today. Cena from Join Fridays. So Cena's been a great friend of mine personally. He's been on the podcast before. Let's hear from Cena and what his thoughts of the conference were.
Hey, Cena. How's it going, buddy? Good. Good. Loving the show. It's obviously my first year here, but I've been following it for a couple years. As I've been following it, obviously GLPs dominate the conversation, as they tend to dominate the conversation on our podcast and the things we talk about it on the pen. But what I'm seeing from the patient side of things is, people have been on GLPs now for a few years. There's a lot of people that really have the freedom to think outside of their weight for the first time when it comes to their health. And so what I think is kind of cool here is that you're starting to see that conversation take place here at Health too. Like, let's talk about GLP-1s. Let's talk about how we can get more access to patients. Let's talk about how we can give better wraparound care. Let's also talk about the other things that people could be doing to optimize their health. Is that kind of what you're feeling too?
Absolutely. I had this conversation with somebody last night that last year it felt like I was at a GLP-1 conference. The health conference last year felt like a GLP-1 and AI conference. This year it feels like a personalized medicine conference. And I think GLP-1s, as we all know, they have catalyzed this moment for people that are suffering with metabolic disease, which a huge percentage of our population are, whether they know it or not. It's catalyzed this hunger for more, right? For getting better, for getting healthier, for optimizing. And so I think, yes, of course, GLP-1s are still dominating the conference here, but I'm seeing a bigger presence from really high-level 503A pharmacies that are focusing now on how to help patients optimize other areas of their health. A lot of it GLP-1 focused, GLP-1 adjacent, and some of it not. Better cellular function, just also doing a lot of research internally at these pharmacies to try to figure out what their patients need and how they can continue to provide increased resources for them. So yes, absolutely, you're right that GLP-1 and metabolic health are still dominating this, because while it's been a few years, we're far from, I think, solving this problem in our country. So it still dominates it, but absolutely, I think pharmacies, providers, telehealth, we're now having these expanded conversations about how can we provide full encompassing healing for patients.
And like we were talking about, people have that luxury now that people are finally getting treatment for the disease of obesity, and effective treatment, that their minds are just freed up to explore some of these other things. What, particularly when it comes to maybe a specific treatment or protocol, what maybe kind of down the pike are you seeing that are things that patients can take advantage of to optimize their health?
Yeah, I think the obvious thing that we know, because we also spend a lot of time on social media, the peptide conversation is increasing, right? What we're seeing on socials is, it's talking about gray market peptides. But I think my belief, maybe I'm the eternal optimist. There's a lot of discussions that are happening at the HHS, at pharmacy levels. I think we will see in the next 12 to 18 months an expansion into getting better protocolization around treatment with things like sermorelin, NAD, potentially, even things like BPC 157, CJC. So that, to me, I find to be the most interesting and the most novel and surprising part of what I've been hearing and learning and talking to people about over the last couple of days. The signal that I've been seeing across the patient population that we serve, which is a primarily metabolic and weight-focused population, we know our patients are reaching out to us constantly to look into our longevity, other ways to optimize. I'm seeing that now expand on a larger scale. It's almost hard to ignore that there's a signal that is getting louder and louder. And of course, there are some regulatory things that would have to shift for this to even become a real, legitimate conversation in the space. But again, maybe I'm an eternal optimist. It seems almost inevitable right now.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit with us. Good to see you, as always.
I come in for the kiss now, or?
So that's Cena from Join Fridays, a great friend of mine personally. I love this conversation. Why do I love this conversation? I love it because when I started on the pen back in 2023, there were so many that were just getting on the pen, especially for obesity. It was a new thing for people to discover. And so many of you have reached that maintenance phase, right? I know for others like me, it's like a pipe dream. It seems so far off. It seems unreachable. But I love the idea that these people have gotten their weight to a point where they have the luxury of focusing on other things about their health. Like when you're trying to get your weight down, if you're anything like me, it's so hard to focus on literally anything else about your health, whether it's your hair or whether it's your skin or whether it's your longevity or just this idea of optimization, functioning at the highest level humanly possible. As we as a community start to look towards this luxury that we've never had before, it really opens the door for these other things to explore. And I'm, for one, super excited about that for those who have reached that point. For those of you who haven't, isn't it a cool thought to one day think about focusing on something other than the fact that you're trying with everything in you to get your weight to where you want to be optimally? I get very excited about that personally, and I know that's something that Cena gets jazzed about, as do others in the space, including our friend Morley Baker from our newest headline sponsor of On the Pen, Shed. So Morley is the one of the founders of Shed, and Shed is a amazing partner here. A amazing telehealth platform that you can check out at tryshed.com. I think soon it'll be /OTP. But if you go there, you'll learn a little bit about Shed. You can use code OTP25 to save 25%. But let's hear a little bit from Morley on the same topic.
Yeah, Morley Baker here, Morley Shed, obviously new sponsor of OTP. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate having you guys on board. We've been walking around just kind of asking everybody at Health this year, what's going on in the space right now that's getting you particularly excited?
Yeah, that's legit. Stoked to be here, obviously, and I think health is a fun spot because there are so many people doing so many ridiculous things, right? It's like everybody in the AI tech space, everybody's here from that angle. That you got the bankers, etc., but then you have all of these more on the innovation side, trying to figure out, okay, how can we improve patient behavior and patient success and all sorts of things like that. Not only from a clinical study type of aspect, but also from just like the experience. There's a bunch of sessions going on right now all about patient experience and how do you encourage them, help them, give them the feedback, the experience that they need throughout their journey in order to like make it successful. So stuff like that gets me really excited. It's fun. It's fun to just surround yourself with the groups that are here. So
for sure, like one of the things that I noticed, I wasn't at Health last year, but I've been following it for a couple of years. And one of the things that I found interesting is everything was so heavily focused on GLP-1s the last year, and you still definitely have that this year. I think GLP-1s will dominate for the next couple of years. But I think what we're starting to see on the patient side is people are hitting maintenance, or they're finally like freed up to look at other aspects of their health, whether it's longevity or energy optimization, body optimization. What are some of the things that you're looking at Shed right now that is really interesting to patients who are kind of like looking a little bit more in that optimization or longevity direction?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think that if you're in an obese state, the primary goal is how do I get out of that obese state? It's like the only thing that really matters, to a lot of patients in that regard, where they're so fixated on that one thing. GLPs, I agree with you. I think they're going to be a topic of conversation for a very long time from now. But when somebody is able to finally say, okay, I'm no longer maybe on that obese spectrum, or maybe not as much on that obese spectrum, I'm seeing the success come from GLPs, then it becomes like, well, I now want to sleep better. I don't want to have as much stress. I want to move my body better. I want to be able to function better, have better sex, have better, whatever. And that's the part of the journey that I think is really exciting, is because we're not now so consumed with how do we lose weight. It's now I can now focus on all these other aspects of my life that are drastically important to having a healthy life and a good lifespan. And so that gets me excited. So it's things like NAD, it's things like Somorelin, it's things like microdosing and maintaining with GLPs on a low dose. I mean, obviously that's still in the microdosing gets me super excited. It's you're obviously a little bit untested in terms of clinical styles and proof there, but microdosing is one where there's so many fringe benefits and side benefits that come from GLPs that healthy individuals, athletes, etc., are taking GLPs on a very low microdose to see success for some of that. So other longevity related kind of support for their bodies. So that type of stuff gets me really excited, especially with health, but talking with others in the space and who we're connected with here, seeing what they're trying to do in that regard.
Love it. And on the microdose stuff, I think that we have seen some clinical evidence so far, even though it's mostly in rodent models, but we've seen that these molecules likely themselves have benefits outside of the weight loss. So I don't think it's a huge stretch to say that people who are looking at maybe lower doses to get some of the benefit of these molecules are potentially going to see these in the microdose. So I think it's an exciting time to be in the space, 100%, and 100%. Always interesting stuff to talk about. So
absolutely.
Thanks for talking to us. Thanks for sponsoring the podcast. Absolutely, we're glad to have you on.
Stoked to have you.
We'll do it again.
Okay.
So I'm giving away who's next on the agenda here, but that's Morley Baker from Shed, one of the headline sponsors of our podcast. Love what they're doing over there. And on the topic of microdosing, obviously we haven't seen clinical studies on this, but I think we've seen enough, especially about the molecule of GLP-1 in terms of benefits that may exist outside of weight loss, right? So if we look at the Wegovy Select trials and we look at the fact that anybody on Wegovy, regardless of the dose that they were on and regardless of the amount of weight they lost, had a reduction in major cardiovascular events. That seems to clue us into this idea that GLP-1, specifically in this case semaglutide, could potentially offer benefits from the molecule alone. And we covered not too long ago, and I alluded to it in this interview, the study that showed in rodents that actually GLP-1 agonism opened up the parasites in the cells of the heart, which actually helped to restore blood flow to the heart after a major cardiovascular event, which is a huge deal because oftentimes there's nothing a doctor can do once that blood flow is cut off to that part of the heart, and that part of your heart just dies. And now for the rest of your life, you're living with a heart that is not fully functioning properly, right? So with the benefit of the GLP-1 agonism and the way that they did it in a study, if you didn't catch this article or the video that we did on this, is that they actually had two, like similar to the study that we talked about with Jeff in the milkshake study, while it brings all the boys to the yard, it actually, when it's blocked, it doesn't bring the blood flow back. And when it's opened, it brings the blood flow back. So not only is GLP bringing the milkshake and the boys to the yard, it's actually bringing blood flow back to the heart. So when we talk about the molecule of semaglutide, of GLP-1 receptor agonism, we are likely talking about a molecule that has benefits and properties that are beneficial to people just outside of the weight loss. And so it's an exciting space. Again, a lot of this is untested, but when you're getting to the point where your weight is under control and you have, again, this luxury of thinking about being around longer, the topic of longevity was something that was talked about a lot at this symposium. A lot of the conversations that were taking place with panels, with experts, medical doctors, researchers, clinicians, was around the topic of GLP-1s perhaps being the best longevity drug to ever come along. So be very interesting to see how the data unfolds, but super excited to talk to Morley and to hear from him as well. We've got two more to hear from. We're going to hear from our friend Sabina over at GLP Winner on her thoughts of the show.
I'm going to tell you what I'm not excited about when it comes to obesity medicine. And that's the rise of these companies that insurance is using to say, oh, sure, we'll cover a GLP-1 if you go through these small number of companies only. And then those companies are designed to basically not prescribe GLP-1s, prescribe GLP-1s for a short period of time and waste your time and blame the patient. That's one takeaway I have that I am not excited about when it comes to the scope of the future of obesity care.
So Sabina's takeaway is funny. I put out a tweet last night. Same takeaway. There were a lot of payers at this health conference, payers meaning PBMs and insurance companies. It was very interesting because there was a night that Mark Cuban spoke, and he spoke about cost plus drugs. There's actually a big news article this week about how Trump RX will be partnering with Cost Plus, which is exciting. Cost Plus, obviously, dealing with the problems of PBMs and wholesalers and how much the price of a medication is jacked up before a patient ever even sees the bill. And so these middlemen are taking and taking and taking from our healthcare system, and cost plus drugs attempts to work on that. But while we see different insurance companies expanding access, we're also seeing some drop it. But where we see it expanding, we're seeing it expand with hoops that patients have to jump through. And these hoops are designed, as Sabina said in a conversation that I had with her, to fatigue the patient into just not wanting to get the medicine. It kind of reminds me of Claimable and why Claimable exists. The insurance companies are relying on you either A, being uninformed, or B, being so exhausted by the process that you just give up trying to get your medication. So that's why accessibility from the system matters. That's why accessibility in the form of compounds matters, because everywhere we turn as patients living with the disease of obesity, we are looking at barriers to access and to treatment. So love what Sabina had to say there. Couldn't agree with her more. We kind of joked. We went to a dinner together. We seem to be spending a lot of times at these shows together because Sabina and I go to a lot of the same ones. And I love what Sabina's doing over at GLP Winner. You can go to glpwinner.com. It's kind of a tool that she has created over there to compare telehealth. But love Sabina and the work that she's doing, and especially as she's kind of gotten more into advocacy. Now, the last guest I'm excited to bring on is Zach Shirtliff. Now, Zach Shirtliff is the Chief Marketing Officer at Strive Pharmacy. Strive being the number one sort of partner with our partners over at Shed. And people ask me, why did you choose Shed? I said, well, when I've talked about partnering with a compound telehealth company, and they do offer branded as well, but I wanted somebody who offered not only access to everyone, but was partnering with pharmacies who are responsible. And Shed has a special relationship with Strive Pharmacy. Now, you may remember Strive because Strive just had the lawsuit that Eli Lilly brought against them in, was it Connecticut, I believe? That lawsuit was just thrown out by that district judge there, and so they had that major victory. But I wanted to talk to Zach about what they're doing at Strive that he's particularly excited about. So let's hear from Zach Shirtliff from Strive Pharmacy.
So we got Zach here from Strive Pharmacy. Zach, you guys are doing some amazing things at Strive. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm going to pause it right there because while Zach's talking, not to distract from the content of what Zach has to say, but there is a comedian that Zach instantly reminded me of. So if you're somebody who watches a comedy, especially stand-up comedy, he reminds me of a specific comedian in the way that he looks and even somewhat in the way that he sounds. So let's see. If you are the first one in the comments to guess what specific comedian I'm talking about, I have a bottle of BPC 157. This is like over $100 value. Put it in the comments. I want to hear from you. First one to do it, and then send me an email at davidonthepen.com. I'll send that BPC out. But don't let that detract from the amazing thing that Zach has to say here.
Zach, I would just like to know from your perspective and Strive's perspective, you know, so much of the conversation at health over the last couple of years has been GLP. It seems like we're starting to see, albeit a tiny shift, a shift to these conversations about longevity and other potential treatments or therapies that people can explore to optimize their health. Tell me what you think a little bit about that shift and maybe why that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, what's exciting is that you have millions of people that are now experiencing life in this way, right? They've conquered their obesity. And so now they're looking at the next opportunity to explore longevity, right? To look at their life more wellness centered and proactive. And what's cool about like compounding pharmacies like Strive is we existed well before GLP-1s, right? We didn't just suddenly come out of thin air when GLP-1s became available. Like, we are a wellness centric pharmacy. We have thousands of different medications. And so what's cool is the healthcare space is evolving to cater to these longevity, wellness-focused needs. And it really, all that means that there's more tools that are available. There are more providers that are equipped to have those conversations. There's more throughput capacity from labs and compounding pharmacies that are uniquely equipped to then provide the medications based on the results of those labs. And so we're particularly excited to see how patients and providers are actually the ones leading the charge to a more proactive, wellness-focused healthcare system.
That's amazing. What are some of the things you guys offer at Strive that people are really getting excited about now in kind of those longevity or optimization spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different types of medications out there. A lot of people have heard about peptides and the possibilities there. A lot of people don't know that GLP-1s are peptides, right? And there's a lot of different ones out there that can empower your body to handle different circumstances of life and decreasing levels in various areas. But also too, just like the environments that we live in, they reduce the amount of, let's say, glutathione in your body. So like glutathione is an example of something that's increasingly popular. NAD plus is trending right now for a reason, because it helps people reclaim their energy. Like, I'm a busy dad of 4 kids and working at Strive. Like, I love using NAD plus to help me have more energy throughout the day. And so I personally have seen the benefits of these medications, but there are thousands of others which really equipped your healthcare provider to partner with you in a really intimate way to determine what is best for you, right? Because there are, so many medications. Even just the ones that I mentioned are just a very small handful of what's possible. And so the platform and the foundation that gives patients options and choice, but also knowledge to make their own decisions in partnership with their healthcare provider, compounding is really what makes that possible, because we're not producing standardized medications at scale. We can truly focus on the patient's more unique needs in partnership with their doctor.
Love it, man. So excited. Such an exciting time to be in this space, and we love it on the pen what you're doing at Strive. Thanks for making some time for us today,
Appreciate
man.
it, Dave.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for the time, brother.
Yep. Bye-bye.
That's Zach Shirtliff from Strive Pharmacy. Great conversation with Zach about sort of some of the other things that people are looking at and some of the big topics of conversation at Health this year. Love what they're doing over at Strive. So for those of you who are keeping score, let's pull it up here. As a side note, while I'm pulling this up, you may have noticed there's some rough edits in there. The Meta glasses only record for 3 minutes. So if I had like one knock against them, besides just the fact that the audio isn't the greatest, it would be that it only lets you record for 3 minutes. So maybe the newer glasses will let you do it for longer. So Adam Ray is the comedian there. So shout out to whoever gets that right or got that right in the comments. Adam Ray, I do you guys see it? I mean, it's kind of uncanny in my opinion, but of course, I had to let him know. It's like the first thing I said. You remind me so much of that comedian. But I hope you enjoyed what Zach had to say. I hope you enjoyed, just the news that we've covered from Strive. It was great to meet those folks and put faces with names and all of that. Just a great opportunity. And I just want to say, as we sort of close out this podcast today, on the flight back, I had, a lot of time, a few hours to reflect. And I know that I've said this before, but I don't want to ever not acknowledge it, especially when it's at the forefront of my mind, is that I'm so grateful for all of you and the platform that you have given me. I feel incredibly honored that I get to wake up every day and do what I love, to bring you information that is empowering to you. And I'm so thankful, and I take so seriously the position that you've put me in to bring you information. I know that you're trusting me to bring you information that empowers you to have more competent and confident conversations with your doctor. And it was just, I had me a moment on the airplane on the way back, because I feel an incredible amount of gratitude for each and every one of you who has given me this platform. I feel a tremendous amount of gratitude for those who have seen what we do here at On the Pen and said, we believe in what you do so much. We want you to make a career of it. And many of you know this, and many of you do not know this, but I am officially a full-time podcaster. This is what I do now, all day, every day. And you are the ones that allow me to do that. With every like, save, share, 5-star review on the podcast, it helps us to continue what we do, helps us to grow what we do, and ultimately reach more patients with the information that empowers them to live better, richer, fuller lives by having more competent and confident conversations with their doctors. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. I couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't do it without you. Until the next one, we'll see you next time.